Hello, welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is how developer experience impacts user experience in blockchain. We have Nick, Kalyani, and Chase Chapman with us.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Welcome. Let's dive in. Tell us about your story.
All right, I can start. So I'm Nick, and I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. I've had a few startups, and TryCrypto, which is our current company, is my fifth startup. Previously, I created a fairly large open source content management system. And prior to TryCrypto, I also created a consumer app that relied on smart contracts on the blockchain along with a mobile front end.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Chase?
I'm Chase. I am the co-founder of TryCrypto along with Nick. And I'll sort of pick up where Nick left off, which is after Nick was doing some things with consumer blockchain, he basically was exposed to a similar problem that I was when I first got into blockchain. He, of course, had a few years in it already, which was user experience in the space still kind of, for lack of a better term, sucks. It's really not good. There are a lot of companies and exciting startups that are trying to solve that problem. And really the whole idea behind a lot of what we're doing is let's make mainstream adoption possible by improving the end user experience. So Nick and I got together, we both sort of had this idea and this passion, and we were actually matched through She 256, which is a program out of UC Berkeley that matches women in the space with mentors who have been in the space for a while, have a lot of expertise, and are sort of leaders in the space. And so Nick was my mentor.
Awesome.
And we ended up bonding over this desire to have better UX in the space, and ultimately realized, okay, if we take a step back, we need to improve developer experiences in order to make user experiences better, really giving developers the tools they need. And so that's where we are now, and working on making developer tooling in the space better.
So tell us about TryCrypto, which is the company, and your aha moment.
Yeah, so our company and our mission is to make blockchain development super simple and super easy for developers. And we are blockchain agnostic, so we work across all the blockchains. And I think when Chase and I first started collaborating, we were working on a blockchain agnostic authentication tool called PhotoKey, which uses photos and emojis for authentication. And as we built it out, we realized that where is this going to reside where users, mainstream users, are going to find it? And that was kind of our aha moment, is that we can't be building things for mainstream users until developers are building apps that mainstream users can use.
We always say my grandma should be able to use blockchain. That's like our benchmark. And so if she can't use it, and really like she's sort of a proxy for, anyone, right? If she can't use it, then it's not fair to expect mainstream adoption to ever happen. People don't want to store private keys and they don't want to do all of that. So getting her to be able to use a blockchain application is our end goal.
Let's talk a little about the current tools that are out there right now. What are the current tools that are out there for blockchain development, and how could that be better?
Yeah, so the thing is, there aren't any tools right now. DAppStarter is the first platform that brings some semblance of structure to blockchain app development. Let me walk you through the developer experience. If you're a web developer, say, and you go like, "Ooh, this blockchain thing sounds interesting. Let me give it a whirl." So what you're going to be inundated with is, first and foremost, a never-ending stream of jargon that you have to parse, and you have to understand what all these things mean. That's the first thing. Then when you get past that, you now have to deal with documentation that is frequently out of date and out of sync with the actual libraries and GitHub repositories, et cetera, where you go get your code, et cetera. And then once you're there, then you are left to dealing with either a series of blogs or Stack Overflow posts where you try and piece together and cobble together what would be a solution. Overall, there is nothing that gives you an end-to-end kind of workflow that says, right, start here, and at the end of this, you're going to have a usable application, web or mobile, that interacts with a blockchain. So in other words, a dApp, a decentralized application. So that doesn't exist right now. And DAppStarter is the first platform that, from the time you visit dappstarter.trycrypto.com, to the point you have a running dApp in your web browser is going to be 15 minutes or less.
Awesome.
And then I'll add on to that because I was actually just listening to an episode of yours about sort of smart contract development and about how there are some tools that do sort of start you off within minutes, but that they're really not extensible enough to be these sort of dApps that get mainstream adoption. And so the way that we like to think about it is what we provide is about 80% of what a developer needs to ship a really high value blockchain application. And so that 20% that a developer adds on top of what we give them is what we like to call their magic sauce, right? It's all of the pieces that make their application special. So for us, it's less about here's your application, go ship it instantly, but it's more about getting them somewhere from the start, getting them 80% of the way there, helping them add in their magic sauce, and then making sure that they can go ahead and ship it and get my grandma as an end user. So it's not just that simple process, but the goal is really to get a developer's hands dirty, help them understand how to engage with blockchain, and from there, empower them to do cooler stuff.
How about your team? How is your team like?
Yeah, we have a team of 10 people. Not all of them are full-time. And we are distributed all over the world across both hemispheres. The thing that I'm most proud of and excited about is the fact that we have a very gender balanced team. And that is important in blockchain because there aren't enough women in blockchain. And we want to make sure that we are one of the companies that represents. And Chase, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think from sort of the start, we've always been about empowering women. Like the partnership between the two of us was always something where, you know, I don't think from like a really young age, we were sharing this on a call the other day. I was like never super into tech because it just wasn't accessible. Like I did a robotics class. All the boys knew how to handle their robots. I had no idea what was going on. And so from that perspective, I think it is really hard for women to enter into tech in general. I think blockchain does a good job at having some systems like SHE 256 and other programs that do promote gender diversity that we grew out of, which is really exciting. And so for us, it's about empowering women to continue to be really leaders in this industry. I think it's so new that as someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience in tech, you can break into it and get involved. And so what we want to do is make sure that not only is our team gender balanced, but also that we have this like balance of knowledge and learning that's going on so that there's not an instance where a female on our team doesn't get all of the education or the time or whatever as another male on our team. And that's really important to us as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, in fact, the cornerstone of our company, if you will, can be one word: empathy. It's empathy for the developer. It's empathy for the team members. How can you show empathy? How can you create a product that has empathy for developers if you don't practice it, if it's not in your DNA, right? And so we try and think about how can we make life easier for developers? And that requires us to really step back and say, what is hard? What is difficult? What is going to stonewall them? What is going to, you know, add friction in their lives, and just clear all of that out? And that requires us to always have this overarching layer of empathy around everything we do.
And Nick, what is your definition of empathy?
Empathy is really getting to our customers, getting into their minds and thinking about how can we make it so you can achieve happiness and do what you want to do, achieve delight without all the frustrations that come with, you know, technology like this. So for us, our vision is for our customers to use our product and be delighted and be creative and do the things that they want to build, be expressive. So for us, it's about really making sure that we think like them, you know.
Awesome. For blockchain development tools today, you have a few like Solidity, MetaMask, Shuffle, Remix, the testnet, and just a bunch of them. As a new developer who wants to enter into the blockchain space, where would you start? Would you start with your own product, the dApp Starter? Or would you learn a few of the other development tools and build?
Yeah, Michelle, you just made the very observation or that defines our you know, why we exist. you listed a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are developer tools. They are frameworks, they are components, they are pieces that you need to put together in order to create a solution. So we incorporate almost all of those into our platform, and we show you how they fit together, almost like Lego blocks, if you will, to create a comprehensive solution that works. Because part of the friction in the developer experience in blockchain is the fact that there are N tools from N different vendors, frameworks, libraries, all plugins, components, etc. How do you piece them together if you don't even know what the landscape is? You don't know what you don't know, and that's where we step into the picture. So yes, absolutely, we starting with DappStarter is going to get you to a place where you start understanding how these fit together.
It's almost like if you were like the remix, the solidity, the truffle, or all of these ingredients to bake a cake. And so developers go into the space and they're like, oh, I see that I need the sugar and the flour and this and that. What we're doing is saying, here's the cake, here's the recipe, here's the whole story, and here's how you bake it. And all those tools are in there. But instead of just throwing a bunch of random ingredients at them, we're saying, here's how all of these things come together.
Yeah, that's awesome. I noticed also that a lot of these development tools are out there, like Solidity, Mist, Remix, MetaMask. They're really Ethereum centric. And I know that there's blockchain and other available blockchains out there. I mean, there's Bitcoin blockchain, and then there's other blockchains out there, not just the Ethereum blockchain. I know that you guys are platform agnostic. How do you and I know that you partner with Harmony and other blockchain projects. What are some of the considerations of which blockchain to use? And does it matter if these ingredients are part of DappStarter, does it matter which platform they choose?
Great question. So the state of the blockchain landscape right now is that there's been a tremendous amount of attention and focus paid to the protocols themselves, almost to the point of exclusion of anything about developing apps. The reason you hear mostly about Ethereum is because it has been there long enough where there's been time for those tools to be produced and to get adoption. On a lot of the emergent blockchains and protocols, they're only now, after having fought the battles of the protocol and got that working, are now thinking, okay, how do we get developers, to build on this? That is not an easy task. That is a really, really, really difficult task. What we are doing is we are working selectively with blockchains that approach us, or we approach them, where we see that, okay, there is a development team here that really cares about building a developer ecosystem. So we engage with them. Examples being the Flow team at Dapper Labs. We're working very closely with them. And we are also going to be working with the Solana team and a few others. But our approach is we think of each of these blockchains as having specialized value. So for example, one blockchain might be of more interest to developers who are building DeFi apps, whereas another blockchain like Flow is more attractive to creators, people who are doing games, things like that. So we work selectively with them, and really we try and make it where all the modules in our platform, which developers use to piece together their app, they are generally present across all the blockchains. So we let the developers decide what is good for them, and we kind of give them some guidance, and Chase can give more information about that.
Okay.
Yeah, what we really try to do, kind of like Nick was saying, is take these protocols and say, okay, you're a developer, you're new to the ecosystem, you know what you want to build, but you're probably trying to understand which protocol you want to build on. And so we're working now, and we're really excited about this, on a new feature that basically helps developers choose what protocol works best for them. Because at the end of the day, like Nick said, it's really about what is the best fit for your application. And so for us, it's not about pushing certain protocols, but instead it's about helping the developer understand. And that's a lot of sort of the main value prop behind what we're doing in general, is we're making it easy by making the tools super simple, but also by helping inform on a very basic level what's going on and what choices a developer is making along the way.
And I'm really interested in some of the features with dApp Starter, like file storage, admin control, and asset tracking. What are those features individually?
Yeah, so before I answer your question, I want to give some context there. So with dApp Starter, what we have is essentially a list of feature modules, as we call them. Each of them represents a particular feature that you might want in your decentralized application. For example, the ability to have administrative roles, so different users who have different roles, or the ability to interact with decentralized file storage like IPFS or SIA. So what we've done is we encapsulate all capabilities of a particular feature into one checkbox. Basically, you check it and you get the smart contract code, you get the web user interface, you get unit tests, and you get a server API. So let's walk through one of those examples, assets, right? So there's different types of assets. A common one you hear about all the time is an ERC20 token, right? But a token is really just a way to track a number associated with users in a blockchain app. So if you choose that particular module, you get all the capabilities to create your own token. But the more interesting ones are the things like IPFS or SIA, where if you choose that, you now have the ability to allow your app users to upload a document. That document gets stored on IPFS, it gets hashed, and that hash gets stored on the blockchain, thus making sure that you're using the blockchain as efficiently as possible. Blockchains are not intended for storing large amounts of data. IPFS and SIA are. You can store, megabytes and gigabytes of information there. So all of that is done for you by checking that one box. You get all the code for IPFS, all the code for SIA, etc. in there.
Awesome. Let's go to dApp Collector, which is really cool because for me, it seems like I can, and the single sign-on, which means kind of like the Facebook one, where you can sign on to anything just with one click. What's the difference between the two?
I can explain the single sign-on piece, and then Nick can go into dApp Connector. So the single sign-on that we have that's an authentication component is called photo key. So if you sort of break it down in the two basics, there's a photo, and the idea is that that is actually what you log in with. So if you think about something like logging in with Google, logging in with Facebook, it's a single identity that you can bring across to multiple different platforms. And that's really ideal as a user. So in crypto, there are a few new companies that are coming up with ways to do that. The problem is that you sort of have this trade-off. So you either have an authentication system that's very easy to use, but not decentralized, not necessarily super secure because you're not storing your private key, you're expecting someone else to. Then there's the other side of things where you store your own private key, which is essentially what allows you to authenticate a user, what allows you to get into a crypto wallet. But they're really hard to use. Like my grandma is probably not going to store her own private key. That's not super safe. So what we did with PhotoKey is we said, how can we create a system that is super like decentralized? We're not storing private keys, but is also really easy to use. And what we came up with, and Nick actually originally came up with this idea at a hackathon, and then we ran with it, is an authentication system that is a wallet for people who are in blockchain, but essentially a login and authentication that allows you to use a photo and a series of emojis to log in on any blockchain or on any website. So in the same way that you log in with Google, you log in with PhotoKey. And from that perspective, it's something that not only could my grandma use it, but also her private keys are not being stored by us. So we deterministically generate your private key using your photo and your emojis. So instead of storing this super sensitive information, we actually generate it every single time you log in, which means that no one stores it, including the user. And that makes it significantly more safe, but also really easy to use. So that's our authentication component that's actually shipping next week as the full sort of production grade, which we're really excited about.
Awesome.
And then Nick, do you want to explain dApp Connector?
Sure. Yeah. So blockchain applications cannot exist in a silo. Well, some of them can, but not all of them. If you want to see mainstream business adoption of blockchain smart contracts, they're going to need to interact with existing data stores, existing APIs, etc. So in the blockchain world, we call that an oracle, an external entity that securely provides or receives information from a blockchain app. So the oracles that exist today, the mainstream ones, are very highly focused on DeFi. They primarily focus on getting pricing of tokens and of crypto, etc.
Mhm.
What dApp Connector is, it's essentially an API and an oracle designed for businesses to use if they want their blockchain apps to interact with their data. So we've created a drag and drop UI where you essentially wire up your API to your smart contract, and then dApp Connector takes it from there. So that data flow can be bi-directional. It can be from your smart contract or to your smart.
Okay, let me ask you a simple question. What is a smart contract?
That's a great question. So a smart contract is a program, a set of code that runs on a blockchain in something called a virtual machine. So essentially think of it as a programmable computer that runs on a blockchain, and a smart contract is the code that you have created that is deployed onto there. The thing about a smart contract that makes it a special kind of program is the fact that once you deploy to the blockchain, it's immutable. You cannot change it. You cannot modify it. And that's where the ability to look at the source code and trust that no programmer is going to come and change the code on you and mess with your data, etc., is built in. So immutability is a fundamental construct of smart contracts, which are apps.
So why does immutability matter? Especially in the context of fake news and fake X, just basically it means fake anything.
Well, if you have an application that is supposed to track, for example, the amount of money you have, maybe it's represented in tokens. You want to make sure that there isn't code in there that is siphoning off some of your money and maybe sending it to someone else. You want to make sure that when it says that you have sent X tokens to a person, that X tokens in fact get delivered to them. So if you are going to trust a program to do that, that is running on the blockchain, it needs to be immutable because you need to know that the code can be changed on you. So that's the fundamental requirement for trustlessness is the ability that no one can just come and arbitrarily change that on you. Like right now, if you go to a Web 2.0 website, like a PayPal or a Google or anything like that, you don't know what the code is doing. Like you have an idea of what it's supposed to do, but you don't exactly know what it's doing, and they could change it on you anytime. You have to just trust that they won't, because it will cause them perhaps financial harm, your reputation loss, or something like that. But that's about it. There's no technical reason why they couldn't change code on you.
However, on a smart contract, you can still change code.
Once it's deployed, you cannot. The programming logic, the code that defines the rules of the program cannot be changed once it's been published to the blockchain.
So how do you modify it?
You can't. You have to create a new smart contract and direct your users to the new one, which is why smart contracts are so complex and require specialized skills, because you have to test them thoroughly and make sure that they're secure, etc., before they are deployed. And that's where DAppStarter helps. We have built-in tests and things like that. We try and make sure all the code is very secure before we ship it.
Okay, and it's trackable.
Everything on the blockchain is public, and everything, even your data. So, I mean, there are private permission blockchains, but our conversation is mostly about public blockchains. Everything you put on there is public.
Okay, because I want to go back to the PayPal example where PayPal and other companies, I don't want to be too hard on PayPal because I used to work there, is that they may have code and they can modify the code, but users don't know about it. But for a smart contract, you could have a contract that is smart because it's digital. And once you have it, you cannot change it because those data, is immutable. And when you need to modify it, you will just basically create another smart contract. However, everything is on the public blockchain because it's trackable. So that's why people could trust it.
Yeah, except there's just one very important detail. when you find that there is a need for you to change your existing smart contract, all the data that's associated with that smart contract lives with the original one. So if you want to create a new version of the smart contract, you're going to have to figure out how to move all the data to the new one or leave the data there. So that's a very expensive proposition, by the way. So it's not something that you take very lightly. It's not a decision that you just arbitrarily make, like, I'm going to publish a new version of my contract. It's not something you do very often.
Awesome. So you just be really careful and deliberate about your smart contract.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's part of too. That's one of the big reasons that, like, when we started looking at user experience, we focused on developer experience, because there is very little room for error with smart contracts. Not necessarily because of the whole, like you can essentially deploy a new contract, upgrade it, technically speaking, whatever. But the problem, like Nick said, is that it gets really expensive to have errors. Like, ridiculously expensive. So unless you have a bottomless wallet that can go on forever, consistently upgrading smart contracts and dealing with all of that data can be a mess. So helping developers understand that and giving them the tools they need to actually do that, to us, is one of the big ways to drive adoption and things like that.
Yeah, there's a technical solution to that. It's how the contract is architected. But in general, if you're just deploying a smart contract, it's there for good.
Awesome. And I wanted to go into the ideal of user experience, because I believe the focus of the project is user experience. However, you're doing development tools to help with user experience. So ideally, what is your vision of user experience with the next generation of applications? How should they look like? And what is the problem with UX right now?
So I think for us, in an ideal world right now, blockchain applications that are growing and doing interesting things should look a lot like the Web 2.0 solution. So that's what we currently have with centralized systems. And in an ideal world, what you end up having is essentially an application that looks a lot like the ones that we're used to. But the only big difference is this transparency piece that Nick is touching on, and that blockchain in general sort of has as a foundation, which is you have a standard UI. People might not even know that there's a blockchain on the back end. But if I am a payment service, for example, rather than only restricting myself to whatever PayPal shows me, I'm actually able to see data and verify it. So within a user interface, that could look like, a link to Etherscan for users that are a little bit more technical. It could also just pull that data. I mean, there are a lot of ways to do it, but essentially my vision of what the next generation of blockchain applications looks like is exactly what every other non-blockchain application that's super simple to use looks like, with this additional layer of transparency. Nick, I'm curious if that's what your vision is.
Yeah, it's almost boring to say, but really the best user experience blockchain apps could give is to just not change everything that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it the same, as people are used to, because people are finally using web and mobile in a way where they can be productive, etc. There's no reason to disrupt that.
Let's go into consensus a little bit, because besides transparency, I just feel like the next generation of applications with blockchain and AI and whatnot has components of the people in mind. I just feel like validators play or may play a big part in blockchain application. With dispute resolution, validating if something is real or not, there are going to be people who may be motivated by tokens or even find solutions to bug. Hopefully they're partial. How could user experience integrate that with consensus? Like, how can that experience be better?
That's an interesting question. One of the things that we're actually working on now, and that we just implemented for Flow, which is the blockchain that Dapper Labs is building, is a voting feature module within DappStarter. And so we've been thinking about governance and how people really, how you can integrate the voice of users into applications And from a consensus perspective, things get very interesting because you have all of these different ways to agree on some shared truth. But for us, what that starts with is really creating sort of the fundamentals of governance, of voting, of these pieces that you can give users the option of opting into. And that's one of the important and interesting parts, I think, about blockchain as a whole. You could force everyone to vote, but just like our democracy in the modern world, not everyone will. And so giving people the opportunity to vote and to have their voice heard, but not necessarily forcing them to do so, at least on an application level. I'm not necessarily speaking at the protocol level. I think is a really good way to govern communities. And that's something that I think we're seeing now within the space too, is how can people have a stake in their communities? And a lot, again, is at the application level that I'm speaking at. I'm sure Nick can speak more at the protocol level. But I think that's a really exciting thing. And we're certainly thinking about that as far as how developers can build those communities.
Yeah, I think I've interviewed a project on governance and voting. Check it out. It's awesome.
Definitely will.
Yeah. Nick, what is your thoughts on user experience and consensus?
Yeah, so I prefer to also speak at the application layer, because at the protocol level it gets very complicated very fast, and really there's no reason for us to be having that discussion, right? Because if you think about it, we don't sit and talk about what is the mechanism by which databases operate, etc. So protocols are really a level below where the user experience begins, and that's at the application, at the smart contract level. So I think there's going to be lots of different models for how consensus is determined. That's because there's lots of different use cases for it. For a use case where a simple plurality will work, you can have a simple smart contract for that. But where something is more complex, where your reputation drives the strength of your vote, the weight of your vote, etc., that's got to be different. There's also systems that smart contracts where your word is not simply good enough. You also need to put your money where your mouth is. So that's where escrow comes into play, more commonly known as staking. So in order to keep you honest, you must put up some money first, and then you can participate in that. So there's all these different models, and I believe that there will be a variety of them, just because there's a variety of use cases, and no single consensus solution is going to prevail and be used everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it, because when I think about the older generation of the internet, which is fairly new, and blockchain, I just have a feeling that besides going on a mobile app or going online and buying stuff and playing games, there's still another mechanism that we can use to ensure that things could be trusted and that they could be fair and the outcome could be fair and that it's less subjective, hopefully, or people are incentivized to be a little bit more partial so that it makes our lives a little bit better. Let's talk about the challenges that you face as a company. What are some of your challenges working with developers?
Yeah, so as a fairly young startup, we are bootstrapped right now. We are working on our first round of capital. Part of our biggest challenge is getting the word out to developers that this exists, and you don't need to be banging your head against a brick wall every day. So it's great to be on your show, so we can promote the fact that this free tool exists for you to use. I think it's early days right now, and the developers we interact with are super excited, and we are gathering a lot of feedback from them, and we are continually innovating. One of the nicest things about our platform is that it's very modular. Every little thing is essentially a feature module. So for us, if a developer comes along and says, "Hey, I have this problem," we'll check and do some research and see if other people have the same problem. And within a matter of days, there'll be a new feature module that shows up that solves that problem. So that makes it a lot of fun, because we can help address a lot of the developer problems. I think one of the biggest challenges is for us is that an ecosystem as a whole, the blockchain ecosystem, has not done a very good job so far of helping developers, of courting developers who are essentially, for example, web developers or mobile developers, and helping pave the way for them to become blockchain developers. because blockchain developers are scarce resource. They're hard to find, right? For all the reasons we talked about today, the friction, etc. But who's going to build this stuff? It's going to be people who already know how to code. And that's mostly web developers. There's millions of them out there. And what we need to do as an ecosystem is really pave the way and make it easy for these developers to make the transition to blockchain development.
Chase, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the main piece is really the helping web developers understand blockchain. And that's really like our key value proposition, is that it doesn't matter what your background is in development, we're going to make it way easier than it ever would have been to build a blockchain application. And so engaging with developers and building that community is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about and doing, because we want to make sure that the world of crypto is welcoming. And we'll have developers within our community that start to like dip their toes in the blockchain space with our tools, and then they'll come back, they have a little bit of confidence, they go online and do some research, and they are fully confused yet again because they've been exposed to all the jargon and stuff in the blockchain space. And so a lot of that for us is helping them sift through all of the stuff that they don't need to know and helping them understand what they actually do need to know. And that's how we spend a lot of time now.
Awesome. And what have been built with your products?
So we have a few projects that are in the works that people are using dAppStarter to build. So Flow has a really awesome program called Open World Builders. We have a few people within that program who are using dAppStarter to build NFT marketplaces and things like that. We also have a couple developers working on some exciting little projects and a few bigger projects in the works. So everything is in development now. Of course, like Nick said, we're a young startup, and so it hasn't been out for that long, dAppStarter as a platform. But we have a lot of projects that will be coming out soon. And then we also have a project that was built in the construction sort of like space. And that one is under an NDA, so they can't talk about it. But we actually have something on our site about how they use dAppStarter and the feature modules that they use and things like that.
Awesome. What is your vision 5 years from now? What do you see TryCryptos grow in enhancing the blockchain space?
Yeah, so we want to be the first stop when any developer for any blockchain wants to build an application. That's our reason for being. And what we want to do is get better and better at it and make it so as right now, it's all new. There's a lot of experimentation going on. And as these experiments bear results, what we want to be is that flag bearer. We want to be the company that incorporates the very best practices into our platform so that new developers and even existing developers can use dAppStarter as the platform to start building their decentralized applications on. So the other thing we want to do is, that's kind of following. We are also innovative. And what we want to do is innovate in this area. And for example, we'll get to a point where one protocol might not be exclusively suitable for a particular dApp. So we want to create the hybrid apps that work across blockchains and things like that. But ultimately, our focus is on continuing to grow mainstream adoption of blockchain. And so that means that we will come up with innovative ways in which developers can deliver great user experiences for end users. So it'll be great user experiences for the developer and for the end users.
Awesome.
I always also say that we really believe in the next generation of blockchain applications to build truly what is a more equitable world. So taking out sort of this middleman, whether it's something like Uber, Airbnb, or our traditional financial system. And so what that looks like to us in 5 years is whatever innovators are coming with blockchain that are disrupting those industries, we want to be built with our tools. And we believe that by giving developers those tools, we're catalyzing a lot of that innovation.
Awesome. And is there anything else that you would like to emphasize that I have not asked?
I think for any developers or anyone interested even in tech, it would be to dip your toes in blockchain. It is still the early days of this industry. There's a lot of excitement and then doubt and then excitement and then doubt. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in that, but ultimately there's so much that's coming and so much promise in this technology. So if you have any interest in it, dip your toes in it and start playing around with it, because it's really exciting, changing, and I think ultimately will actually make this world a better place.
Yeah, I would add to that for developers who have not yet tinkered with blockchain, this is a green field. You need to be here because you can be one of those people who can innovate and really shape how decentralized applications are developed in the future. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of stuff you can learn and grow, and it's great for your career too. So the water is warm. Come on.
Awesome. If folks have questions about Try Crypto, where do they learn more about the products? Where can they find you online?
So we are on Twitter, which is @TryCrypto. We also are on trycrypto.com. Basically every social media you can think of, we have Try Crypto. We also have a Discord that we're building up a community of. So joining our Discord, we try to be very active on it, helping people who are working through and using DAppStarter. Is there anything I'm missing, Nick?
No, that's good. Everything short of our mobile number for texting us directly.
That's right.
What is one piece of advice you would like to provide to the community?
So for the blockchain community, I'll just reemphasize, we really need to have empathy for developers who are new to this and shape our documentation, our messaging, everything to make it more welcoming and less jargon oriented. And for developers who have tried blockchain previously or even now and are frustrated, come to us. We'll help you. We'll hold your hand and we will walk this path with you and help you get there.
Chase?
I would say for anyone who's not in blockchain, it's not that scary. You just got to get past all the junk. That's most of it. Like truly, I think that is the biggest thing, is if you keep going and you keep trying, you will uncover something very cool. I always tell people to find their blockchain X, especially people who aren't super technical, though I think this also applies to technical people. If you want to get into a space where you actually want to become a thought leader, I think one of the best ways to do it is find an emerging industry and then find a sort of traditional industry that already exists and define the intersection of them. And I helped create part of the curriculum for our student organization at the University of Michigan about blockchain. And so one of the things that I consistently tell people is find your blockchain X, whether it's construction X blockchain, finance X blockchain, find it, get really good at it, write about it, and get involved.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Thank you. It was great chatting.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.